Hello friends, welcome back to JK Shah classes. Today we are going to continue with the revision of transfer pricing chapter for CA final AY 2025-26 applicable for May 25 and November 25 attempt. Part 2, part 1 we are done with. In part 1 we finished the whole chapter except of 92CC, 92CD, 92CE and 94B. Last we discussed was about notified jurisdictional area section 94A. Now we will start with advance pricing agreement 92CC. What is advance pricing agreement? It is pricing agreement between assessee and the government about what? It is pricing agreement with regards to determining the ALP in advance. In advance means before the time, before the transaction is actually executed. Which transaction? International transaction. So this concept is only for international transaction, does not apply to domestic transaction or specified domestic transaction. Concept is for international transaction whereby assessee will enter into agreement with government. On behalf of government, it will be CBDT entering into agreement whereby arm's length price of the given international transaction will be predetermined. This will provide relief, this will maintain transparency. For example, I am a foreign company X Limited, I come to India to manufacture. Under globalization era, Government of India invited me. I am a foreign company, Government of India requested me, please come to our country also. I was already existing in Taiwan, China, Bangladesh. Now Government of India invited me. I said okay, I will come to India because factors of production are available at a cheaper rate in India. So my manufacturing cost, which was 1000 rupee per unit in Europe, if I come to India, my manufacturing cost is 100 rupee in India, 100 rupee per unit in India. 1/10 of what is the cost in Europe. Now I came to India only for manufacturing. I do not intend to show any profits in India. My intention is not to evade tax, but I was not going to come to India. Indian government was not going to earn anything out of me because I was out of India. Indian government requested me come to India, so I said okay, I will come to India. But then after manufacturing this product, when I exported out of India to my home country where I want to sell the product, what selling price will I record in Indian books of accounts of X Limited? I will record 100 rupee only. I will show profit to be nil. Why would I show profit in India? I don't even understand in Indian accounting system. I came to India based on request of Government of India. Now after 3-4 years down the line, during assessment, assessing officer applies resale price method RPM, the price at which I resold outside India to my associated enterprise. Y Limited is my parent company through which I sold goods in the local markets of Europe. I sold it at 5000 rupee per unit. Imagine AO applies RPM and rejects this actual selling price, actual transfer price, substitutes it by 5000 per unit or even 4000 per unit minus 100 rupee per unit. 4900 is profit worked out and charges me tax on this, 30% tax, 35% tax. Plus penalty, which is twice of the tax, double the tax, plus interest, my entire profit will get wiped out. My profit in European country will also get wiped out. It would have been better staying in Europe rather than coming to India because of heavy tax cost. I don't intend to evade tax, but Government of India is trapping me. This I started labeling as a tax terrorism. So I would face this problem not only in India, I would face globally also. Other countries also I will face the same problem. So unanimously, internationally it was decided that some clarity should be given to these people before they enter into Indian markets, before they execute international transaction, that arm's length price will be so and so figure. Accordingly, it was decided internationally and then India copy pasted that provision of advance pricing, that pricing should be predetermined. Because I don't come to India for evading tax, I am coming to India to manufacture, whereby Indians are also benefited, they get jobs, they get employment opportunity, everyone is benefited, win-win situation. I am ready to pay tax, but not this way, not in the form of heavy penalty and interest and with a label of tax evader. I don't want that. So under this agreement, I will enter into agreement with Government of India, that is CBDT, and will predetermine that okay, ALP will be 300 rupee per unit, fixed price. Neither 100 nor 5000, 300 rupee. If you are comfortable, come to India. Your profit will be 200 rupee per unit after subtracting cost. If you're comfortable, come to India, else don't come to India. That kind of concept. So who can enter into this APA? Section 92CC was introduced with effect from 1st July 2012, Chidambaram. And then Arun Jaitley ji, he made some amendments. This is an interesting concept, you should be knowing about it. It's only for international transaction, not for specified domestic transaction. Rule number 10F to rule 10T. Plus Arun Jaitley ji introduced some concept called rollback provision, for which two extra rules were introduced, rule 10MA and 10RA, which is in between only 10MA-RA. And then CBDT issued one circular, CBDT circular, which is in the form of question answer, answering 14 FAQs, 14 frequently asked questions. Some part of rule 10MA-RA and CBDT circular will be discussing in this revision lecture. Otherwise, you can have a look at them separately. So, advanced pricing agreement, who can enter into this agreement with whom? The answer, any person with CBDT. However, CBDT will be entering into this agreement on behalf of government. So, it is with the approval of central government, finance ministry. So, CBDT is like a puppet. Basically, everything is decided by central government. Not many people, not many international groups have taken advantage of this. Hardly less than 100 people have applied to government or CBDT. Okay. Now here CBDT may enter into agreement with any person. We don't say assessee because reason is it is not always assessee. Supposingly I am X Limited, Indian company. I have transactions with Y Limited, foreign company. So this entry, who is the assessee in India? I am the assessee. X Limited, the Indian company is the assessee going to pay tax in India. Maybe it's a subsidiary of foreign company, but assessee in India is X Limited. So this agreement can be entered into with not only X Limited, agreement can be entered into by Y Limited also. Y Limited is not an assessee, therefore we say any person. Any person means person connected with that transaction. Advanced pricing agreement with CBDT. Okay, this agreement will provide for two things. Initially it was only for this chapter. Now government expanded the scope, Arun Jaitley ji, and he made it applicable for section 911 income also. So 92C ALP and for section 911 income, that is income deemed to accrue or arise in India. Income deemed to accrue or arise in India of non-resident. What is this 911? Let's understand. First of all, section 9 subsection 1 itself is income deemed to accrue or arise in India. This 911 has got 8 sub-clauses, 8 clauses. Clause 1 till clause 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what are these 8 clauses? The first one is income from property held in India, income from business connection in India. If you recollect, inter CA also you had studied it. Income from business connection in India or income from property held in India, property located in India, that is house property income. So here PGBP income is covered, IFHP income is covered, IFHP income or income from capital asset located in India, that will be capital gain. So clause 1 talks about PGBP, IFHP, capital gain. Clause 2 and 3 talk about salary. Then clause 4 talks about dividend income, dividend from Indian company. Clause 5, 6, 7 we are done with in some other chapter, special rates of tax, chapter 12. 5, 6, 7, 5 talks about interest, 6 talks about royalty, 7 talks about FTS, fees for technical service, and clause 8 talks about money exceeding 50,000 received by non-resident from some Indian. Gift of money, IFOS chapter. Okay, any which ways, this advanced pricing agreement, just like 92 CB, is applicable for income from business connection in India. The way I told you in 92 CB last time, safe harbor rule, here also, how much income will be deemed to be accruing in India from business connection. So that depends upon what percentage of business connection is in India. If non-resident or foreign company don't have 100% business connection in India, only some business connection. Like I had given example of film shooting. If film is shot, Hollywood film is shot in India, part of the shooting is in India, then part income will be taxable. Now how much income will be taxable, that depends upon what percentage of shooting was in India, which is a very subjective thing. Who will decide? As a producer of film, I'll say only 1% shot in India. AO will say 50% shot in India. Accordingly, 50% global income in India. So there used to be a lot of litigations with regards to this. So finally, advanced pricing agreement concept introduced for this also, whereby assessee or any person enters into agreement with CBDT and the income will be finalized. Either of the two, either the amount of income will be finalized that okay, 80 crore rupees fix is accruing in India or deemed to be accruing in India, or percentage will be predetermined that okay, manner will be predetermined, method will be predetermined, that okay, 18% income will be out of your global income, 18% income from this film production will be deemed to be accruing arising in India. So 92CC, same thing for ALP also. Two things, number one for arm's length price and number two for 911 income. Number one, either ALP will be determined that okay, ALP in your case will be 300 rupee per unit fixed amount, or manner of, or it will specify the manner in which ALP is to be computed. Methodology will be specified that okay, in your case ALP will be 200% or 300% of your cost. 300% of your cost, or maybe cost plus 180%, something will be predetermined. And second point, it will be about 911 income. But before we proceed further, understand the original language used. It says ALP in relation to international transaction, not for specified domestic transaction, and secondly international transaction to be entered into by that person, meaning thereby only for future international transactions, not for past. Then Arun Jaitley ji introduced a new concept, rollback provision, whereby this APA can be done for past years also, for past international transaction, because this was only for introduced by Arun Jaitley, introduced by Chidambaram ji was only for future transaction. Arun Jaitley ji allowed it for past transactions also, which is called as rollback provision. Second, income referred to in 911, that is income from business connection in India. Either amount of income will be predetermined or the manner in which this income is to be computed, that manner will be predetermined with effect from AY 21-22. You don't need to remember which year. Obviously, this agreement, such kind of agreement cannot have a lifetime validity. It will be valid for a particular period. How much period? Period will have to be predetermined by person while entering into agreement with CBDT. Everything will be decided based on mutual understanding. So it's not that whatever person that assessee specifies, that only will be accepted by CBDT. Okay, agreement will be valid for a period specified in the agreement which shall not exceed 5 years at a time. That means it could be for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, or max 5 years. Secondly, this agreement, on whom will this be binding? So answer, it has to be binding on somebody, no? On assessee it will certainly be binding, that is person who is the applicant, person who has entered into agreement. What about department? Answer, it will be binding department also. Then only it makes sense. Such agreements are not available free of cost. One has to pay the fees. Let me tell you the fees right now only. Fees will depend upon the amount of transaction or the value of international transaction for the entire period. If you are entering into agreement for 5 years, then the international transactions, value of international transaction in those 5 years combined together, if it is up to 100 crore, then the fees will be 10 lakh rupees. If the amount is more than 100 crore but up to 200 crore, then the fees will be 15 lakhs, and more than 200 crore, then fees will be 20 lakh. Whatever may be, fees is not that important. Agreement will be binding on 3 types of things. Binding on the person who has entered into agreement, of course, that is assessee, plus will be binding on the transaction in relation to which the agreement has been entered into. If the transaction is for manufacturing of air conditioners and ALP is 300 rupee per unit, hypothetically, same ALP cannot be applied for other product. Tomorrow I start manufacturing helicopter, then air conditioners ALP cannot be applied for helicopter, and vice versa. And thirdly, it will be binding on the Commissioner of Income Tax and all income tax authorities subordinate to, that is below the rank of CIT. Simply will be binding on department. However, let me tell you, it is binding on assessee, that is person who entered into transaction in respect of which, and CIT, meaning thereby this is called agreement in persona. Persona means personal agreement. This agreement cannot be generalized. other people having same activity, same residential status, everything remaining same, other people cannot make use of it. For example, this agreement was entered into between Mr. X, or let's say X Limited and CBRT. X Limited is from Netherlands based company. They entered into agreement with CBRT. Okay, now tomorrow Y Limited comes into India for same business, manufacturing of air conditioner, same country, Netherlands. They also have to enter into agreement with CBRT by paying the prescribed fees 10 lakh, 15 lakh, 20 lakh. They cannot say that agreement applicable to Y Limited, our matter is exactly same, let the same agreement be applicable to us also. No, that cannot be done. They have to enter into separate agreement with CBRT. Okay. Can they say that okay, it is binding on CIT also? Our X Limited CIT is CIT 32, our CIT is also CIT 32 and is binding on CIT 32, that means binding on us also, or binding on CIT for our case also? Answer no. Very clearly mentioned, binding on CIT 32, but in respect of the said person and the said transaction, meaning thereby binding on CIT 32 in respect of X Limited, not for other people. And last, can this agreement be declared as void? Answer yes. This is again an important point, keep it in your mind. Can be declared by CBRT to be void ab initio. Ab initio means from the initial stage, from the beginning. If it is found out by CBRT after entering into agreement, CBRT finds that the agreement was obtained by the applicant by either fraud or misrepresentation of facts. Fraud or misrepresentation of fact, then again CBRT will require approval of central government. So for entering into agreement also CBRT requires prior approval of central government, and for declaring agreement to be void ab initio, again CBRT will require prior approval of central government. Once the agreement is declared as invalid or void, then what will happen? Then all the provisions of the act will apply as if this agreement was never entered into, as if this APA was never entered into, as if things were as it is what they were earlier. Now this manner of determining ALP, what we discussed in the first point, it will determine either ALP 300 rupee per unit, or the manner in which ALP can be determined, methodology will be given. Will it have to be one of that method only? CPM, RPM, CUPM, RPM, etc. Answer, it could be same method, or 911 income as per income tax rules, or any other method as may be found necessary with some variation. The manner of determination of ALP or 911 income may include the method referred to in 92C1, that is 5 plus 1 6 methods, or income tax rules respectively, with such adjustments or variation as may be necessary or expedient to do so. Okay, once the ALP is determined of any international taxation, or income under 911 is determined as per APA, then total income shall be determined ignoring anything given or irrespective of anything contained in 92C or 92CA. 92CA means transfer pricing officer, 92C means methods of computing ALP. Simply ignore anything given in 92C, 92CA, complete the assessment or total income computation will be in accordance with advance pricing agreement only. That is okay, it goes without saying. Valid for 5 years, max 5 years, not binding if there are changes in the law or the facts, but otherwise binding on 3: person, transaction, and CIT and subordinate income tax authority, agreement in persona. Not binding if there are changes in the law or the facts having any kind of impact on the agreement, having any bearing on the agreement. So tomorrow if the law changes or the facts of the case change, then agreement may have to be renewed or may have to be dropped, may have to be cancelled. CBRT can declare the agreement to be void ab initio in 2 situations that we discussed, but with the approval of central government. Once declared void, then provisions of the act will be applicable as if agreement was never entered into. And secondly, time of department lost or wasted, starting with the date of entering into such agreement and ending on the date on which such agreement is declared to be void, may it be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, that much shall be excluded. Period beginning with the date of agreement and ending on the date of order under subsection 7 declaring it to be void shall be excluded. And after exclusion of this time period, if the balance time available with the AO to complete the assessment is less than 60 days, then the balance time shall be extended to 60 days. That is everywhere, we know about it. Now what is rollback provision? So as I discussed with you, agreement is applicable only for advance, it is applicable only for international transaction to be entered into. International transaction to be entered into. That means for future transaction. Now Arun Jaitley ji, as per international standards, brought the concept of rollback. What is rollback? Rollback means roll back, backwards, going backwards, maximum 4 years as well as minimum 4 years. 92CC subsection 9A. Suppose agreement is entered into in 24-25. I would not say agreement entered into, I would say agreement is applicable from financial year 24-25, because the time limit to apply for this agreement is the agreement should have been entered at any time before the first day of financial year for which agreement is required. Will be valid for next 5 years including financial year 24-25. Agreement must have been entered into in financial year 23-24, then applicable from 24-25. Under rollback, you go backwards. APA applicable for next 5 years going on till financial year 29-30, maximum 5 years. I would not say always 5 years. 5 years plus going backwards 4 more years. Which 4 years? Financial year 24-25 it starts. So prior to that will be 23-24, 22-23, 21-22, 20-21. These 4 years APA can be applied for earlier years also, but minimum 4 years as well as maximum 4 years. So there is a clarification by CBDT in Rule 10MA and Rule 10RA stating that agreement cannot be opted randomly for any of the year. I mean rollback cannot be opted for any of the years. It has to be 4 consecutive years immediately preceding the year from which APA applies. Assessee cannot say I want, you are not buying a garment, you are not buying t-shirt or a sari in a garment shop. You cannot say show me that, show me that, show me that, change, give me some other color. No. Option not available, compulsorily these 4 years, all the 4 years or none of the 4 years. 0 years or all the 4 years. Of course, it is applicable with the additional fees of 5 lakh rupees, not available free of cost. Those who want pay 5 lakh extra. However, minimum 4 as well as maximum 4 subject to condition that, or subject to a point that assessee that is X Limited was present during these 4 years in this world. Suppose any assessee is newly created, assessee company was incorporated in 22-23, then rollback not possible for all the 4 years, rollback will be given for those 2 years when the company was there in this world. Similarly, the type of international transaction prevailing in the APA years, same type of transaction should prevail, same type of international transaction should have prevailed in the rollback years also. We will call these years as rollback years as used by CBDT. Rollback years, CBDT calls them as rollback years. Whatever transaction, whatever international transaction that is entered into during APA years, APA means APA without rollback, or I would say other than rollback. APA years other than rollback years, whatever type of international transaction is entered into in these 5 years, same should be the type of or class of international transaction during the rollback year. Then only concept will be applicable. Rollback will be available only if it is optional. Assessee can apply for it. Either assessee can apply for it after entering into APA for next 5 years or along with APA for next 5 years. Along with that, you pay 5 lakh extra and get it done. It is optional, so it is not necessary. But CBDT issued a circular and clarified that if you want rollback, you have to take APA without rollback also or other than rollback. Next 5 years you enter into, then only you can pay 5 lakh extra and go for preceding 4 years. You cannot have only rollback without APA. Only APA possible without rollback, but APA with rollback possible, but only rollback without APA not possible. It's like you go to a shop, you buy idli chutney or idli sambar, then restaurant offers you that you want sambar, will give you extra sambar without charging you or by charging you some fees, but only sambar not available. You have to place order for idli. First you place order for idli, along with that we will give you sambar. If you want extra sambar, we will charge you fees, but only sambar not possible. That kind of a story it is, right? Okay. As far as rollback years are concerned, assessee should be available in this world, should be existing. Type of international transaction should be existing in that. Plus, IT return of those 4 years should have been filed within the due date. Then CBDT issued a circular and clarified if IT return is not filed within due date for one of the years. For remaining 3 years, IT return has been filed in time. Then rollback will be available for remaining 3 years, though there is a condition of minimum 4 years. Rollback for that many years for which IT returns were filed in time. But IT returns out of 4 years were filed in time for 3 years, this and this, not filed in time for 21-22. Then 21-22 will lapse. Rollback will not be given for that year. Fees will still be 5 lakhs. Fees will not be bargained. However, in place of 21-22, assessee cannot request for one more year. Assessee cannot say, since I am paying full 5 lakhs, you give me 19-20 also. No, 19-20 will not be given. IT return should have been filed within due date, and CA report in form number 3 CEB under section 92E should have also been filed in time for all the 4 years. If not filed for any of the year, then for that year rollback will not be given without bargaining in the fees. Rollback will be given for remaining years. Okay, so for rollback years, 4 conditions. Assessee should be there in this world during those 4 years. Type of international transaction which is entered into during APA years without APA years other than rollback years. Same type of international transaction should have been there during rollback years also. IT return should have been filed in time for rollback years, and CA report should have been furnished in time for all the rollback years. Otherwise, for one of the years not there, then for that year rollback will not be given. Additional fees 5 lakh rupees. There is some form number. Okay. So not exceeding 4 previous years, immediately preceding the previous year from which APA applies. Rule 10 MA RA plus CBDT circular. CBDT issued circular number so and so, which I have covered in the notes, which I will not be covering it up in the revision lecture. It is some select points I have already discussed, 4 points. Okay, now rule 10F to 10T, some of the points. Rule 10H I would like to discuss. Now before entering into agreement, there will be, when we buy some property, so we don't straight away enter into sale agreement or purchase agreement instantly. We first give some token amount. We first enter into MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. Same way here also there is a concept. Anybody interested, eligible person will have to approach, will have to make an application in form 3 CEC without any fees. 3 CEC. Audit report was on form 3 CEB. This is form 3 CEC. No need to remember form number. Apply to whom? Not to CBDT. Apply to Director General of Income Tax, International Transaction. This is called pre-filing consultation. Pre-filing means before filing application for advance pricing agreement, you have a discussion, application for pre-filing consultation. Then DGIT will form a team and the team will contact you. Team will hold pre-filing consultation, that is pre-filing meeting. However, agreement can be entered into either with only CBDT, that is only Indian government, which is called unilateral agreement, or in case if this person is ex limited and they have a presence in UK also and they want UK government also to have same kind of agreement, they want tri-party agreement, that if Indian government says 300 ALP, UK government should also accept purchase price to be 300. Both the government should accept same figure. So in that case, assessee may want that agreement we would want to have not only with Indian government, that is CBDT, we would want to have it with UK government also. Then it will be called as bilateral agreement. Bilateral. And if assessee is present in multiple countries and wants agreement between same kind of agreement with Indian government, US government, UK government, German government, French government, then one can have multilateral agreement. So unilateral, bilateral, multilateral. Unilateral means only assessee and CBDT, that is Indian government. Bilateral means Indian government plus some other government also. And multilateral means multiple government. If the agreement is only unilateral, then DGIT will form a team. And in case if it is a multilateral agreement, then apart from team, Competent Authority of India, that is Finance Ministry, and their representative, they will also join the team and will associate with the team and will have pre-filing consultation. Here there will be multiple meetings, everything will be negotiated, worked out. If win-win situation, both the parties are comfortable, terms conditions will be negotiated. Then finally assessee at pre-filing consultation stage only, DGIT will tell them, clarify whether though you are eligible, whether agreement should be proceeded further or not. If everything is found in order, then one can make an application to DGIT only in form 3 CED along with fees. Fees will depend upon 100 crore, 100 crore to 200 crore, more than 200 crore, 10 lakh, 15 lakh, 20 lakh. First you pay the fees, then file this form 3 CED. Pre-filing consultation was in form 3 CEC, this is in form 3 CED. Along with fees, proof of fees to be attached with. Apply to whom? Apply to DGIT International Taxation for unilateral APA, that is only with Indian government, or make an application in the same form. Don't approach DGIT International Taxation, approach competent authority in India, that is Finance Ministry, in case you want to have multilateral or bilateral agreement. Okay. Agreement will be applicable from the first day of the previous year for which application is made, or agreement application to be made before entering into transaction. This is unimportant. Withdrawal of application is possible if you want to withdraw application in form number 3 CEE. 3 CED you apply for it, 3 CEE you can withdraw it. Fees paid will not be refunded back. Once question came on this point in RTP, not in exam, on this whether fees will be refunded back or not. Nothing doing, fees will be gone. Okay. Then rollback, rule 10 MA, anybody who wants rollback will have to pay 5 lakhs extra, minimum 4 years, maximum 4 years, other than those years for which eligibility criteria not met. IT return not filed in time, CA report not furnished in time, assessee was not there in this world, or the class of international transaction was not there in that year. Then one can apply to DGIT International Taxation in form 3 CEDA with 5 lakh rupee extra fees for rollback. Rollback provision will be applied for minimum 4 years, maximum 4 years, that we all discussed. Okay, will be provided subject to various conditions. One more condition is that appeal should not have been decided for that year by ITAT. If appeal is already disposed of by ITAT, then for that year APA rollback will not be given. If appeal is pending before CIT appeal, JCIT appeal, ITAT or High Court, Supreme Court, wherever pending, to that extent which is subject matter of APA or rollback, to that extent assessee will have to withdraw the appeal if assessee had filed the appeal, or department will withdraw the appeal if department had filed the appeal. Okay, nothing great. Some part we will discuss in the next section, 92 CD. Okay, after entering into this APA or rollback, there is something called annual compliance. Annual compliance report. Annual compliance report means some terms conditions would have been dictated for entering into APA or rollback or both. CBDT, that is DGIT International Transaction, would have international taxation would have dictated some conditions subject to which APA is granted. Whether those conditions are complied with or not, one will have to carry out annual compliance, one will have to furnish annual compliance report. Annual compliance report will have to be furnished to competent authority of India, one copy to competent authority. Assessee will furnish to DGIT International Taxation. DGIT International Taxation will forward to competent authority of India or CIT and TPO, one copy. Then there is something called compliance audit. Compliance audit will be done by TPO. One is compliance, annual compliance report, ART, ACT, annual compliance, ACR, annual compliance report, which assessee will furnish to DGIT, and compliance audit report will be done by departmental authority TPO to comply, to check whether all conditions are complied or not. Okay, revision of an agreement. Revision, if there are any changes of critical assumption or failure to meet condition, change in law or request by competent authority of other country, this is unimportant. Then agreement, terms, conditions or part of the agreement can be revised, can be changed, can be amended. Okay, cancellation of an agreement, agreement can be cancelled by assessee also can request, and the CBDT can also get it cancelled, both the parties. Fees will not be refunded back under any circumstance. Renewing the agreement will be subject to same procedure as we discussed. Again, assessee will have to pay the fees of 10 lakh, 15 lakh, 20 lakhs. However, pre-filing consultation will not be applicable if there are no changes in the facts. Miscellaneous, unimportant. Now 92 CD. Whatever was relevant we discussed, key points. in the notes which I have uploaded, I have incorporated key highlights, whatever are the key points that I have incorporated. Now, so rollback related provisions are all done. Now next is section 92CD. Whatever are the relevant conditions now that I have included here. IT return should have been filed within due date. CA report should have been filed within due date. Appeal should not have been disposed of by ITAT. If disposed of, then APA rollback not possible for that year. And if appeal is pending, then rollback will be given, but assessee will have to withdraw the appeal. Department has filed the appeal, department will have to withdraw the appeal. Then there is one more point that which is given in CBDT circular also and given in rule 10 RA also, that rollback will be given in such a way that because of rollback provision, the income for the earlier 4 years, rollback years we call them as, income of rollback years should not go down below the income, below the level at which it was declared in the IT return. So if assessee had declared ALP as per IT return, in IT return assessee had declared let's say 300 per unit. As per AO, under assessment under 143.3, AO said 1200 rupees, and 1200 has become final. Whether appeal is filed or not filed, this is the story of one of the rollback here. Now as per APA rollback, provision, the ALP is determined at 800 rupees. 800. Then answer yes, rollback will be given. Then assessee is benefited. Benefited in what sense? Now instead of 1200 rupees, APA, as per APA, ALP is 800 rupees. So that means total income will come down by 400 rupees. Is this allowed? Answer, this is allowed. This is allowed. As compared to what AO had determined, APA can bring it down to 800. ALP determined by AO can be brought down. However, because of rollback, income should not go down below what assessee had shown in the IT return. So as per IT return, if it is 300, as per AO 1200, but as per rollback, supposingly, as per rollback provision, it turns out to be 250 rupees. If you apply 250 rupees as compared to what AO had done and as compared to what assessee had opted for, then rollback will be given to none. If rollback is given, allowed, then taxable income will come down by 50 rupees per unit. Answer, this is fine, but here CBDT clarified that rollback will be given in such a way that ALP ultimately should not have effect of bringing down the total income below the level at which it was declared in the IT return. So a rollback will be given, will not be denied, but in rollback ALP will be 300 per unit instead of 250 for that year. Other years 250, for that year it will be restricted to 300. Okay, nothing great. Now proceeding further, next is 92CD. Now 92CD title is effect to agreement. This is not that important from exam perspective, but institute has a right to ask MCQ on this. What is it? Understand. Right to effect to agreement. Effect to agreement. Agreement means APA. Ideally, this section is applicable for rollback years. What is the concept? Understand. Rollback is entered into in 24-25. APA is entered into applicable from 24-25 and plus 4 rollback year. So now onwards, financial year 24-25, I will calculate my income and file IT return as per ALP given in APA. As per ALP given in APA, let's say 800 rupee per unit. But earlier years, that is rollback years, for which I have already filed IT return, then I must not have considered ALP as per IT return, ALP as per APA. I must have already filed IT return. So this section is applicable for those years for which IT return is already filed before entering into APA, and APA applies to that year. So notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in 139, section 139, that means ignoring any IT return requirement given in 139 section, where a person has entered into an agreement, that is APA, and prior to the date of entering into agreement, IT return is already filed prior to the or before the date of entering into agreement, which is possible for rollback only. Then assessee will be required to file modified return, but modified return is same as revised return only, but we will not call it as revised return, because in revised return we can do anything, we can make any kind of change. In modified return, we can make only one change. So government wanted to use a different name, modified return. It is ultimately it is kind of making changes in the return already filed, because that IT return must have been filed without considering ALP as per APA, because we didn't know, or assessee didn't know how much will be ALP as per APA. Okay, modified return to be filed within a period of 3 months from the end of the month in which agreement is entered into, APA is entered into. Let's try to understand with the help of an example. Let's say financial year 23-24, 1st April 23 to 31st March 24. Then your financial year 24-25, which starts from 1st April 24, goes on till 31st March 25. Here 1st November 24 agreement is entered into for financial year 24-25, total 9 years, 5 future years including 24-25 and 4 years backwards. Which 4 years backwards? 23-24, 22-23, 21-22 and 20-21. Now the thing is that the assessee will have to file modified return. Modified return will have to be filed for which of the years? Modified return will have to be filed for those years for which IT return is already filed. So IT return must have been filed for which of the years? Answer: as on 1st November 24, as on the date of entering into agreement, IT return must have been already furnished for these last 4 years. Not for current year, no. 24-25 assessee will now file the return, right? So these four years will fulfill two conditions. Number one, IT return is already filed before the date of entry into APA, and APA applies to it. How APA could apply? Under rollback. Then assessee will have to file modified return. Modified return to be filed within 3 months from the end of November 24, end of the month in which APA was entered into. APA is entered into on 1st November 24. Let that month get over 30th November 24 plus 1 month plus 3 months, 28th February 2025. That is okay. I will file modified return. But what if assessment for any of these years is already completed? Assessment is already completed. Naturally, nobody knew it in advance that I will be applying for rollback and rollback would be granted to me for last 4 years. Nobody knew. So assessing officer also didn't know. I finished filing IT return. Remedy for me is to file modified return. But what if AO has already completed assessment before expiry of this time limit of modified return? AO has already, quite possible, no? Let's say AO has completed assessment for financial year 2021, 21-22, maybe 22-23 also. 23-24 may be completed, may be pending, but earlier years must have been completed. What to do? Answer: if assessment, two possibility: assessment is already completed for any of these years, or assessment is pending. Assessment includes reassessment also. If it is already completed, any of these years, 2021 till 23-24, assessment, reassessment already completed, then AO will have to pass order modifying the total income taking into account APA. AO will have to just pass one order and modify the total income as per APA. Within what time limit? Answer: AO will get 12 months time or 1 year from the end of the financial year in which modified return is furnished. 1 year from the end of financial year in which modified return is furnished. The total period available to AO would be more than 12 months. What if assessment was not completed? It is pending as on the date of filing modified return. If it is pending, then AO will have to complete it, complete the assessment, reassessment. Within what time limit? Answer: if it is already completed, then AO will pass modified order within 1 year time limit, 1 year from the end of financial year. 1 year extra will be available to. Same way here also, 1 year extra will be available. AO will have to complete the assessment, reassessment within the time limit given in Income Tax Act normal provision plus 12 months. Time limit given, time limit will be extended by 12 months. Okay, up till now institute has never asked question on this, so this is unimportant. If you want to study, you study, otherwise you can skip. And except as otherwise provided, all the other provisions of the act will apply to such modified return as if modified return is the return filed under 139. Okay, Then all these things we discussed. This section is over. Now some points to be noted. Interesting point. 92 CD is over. Some provisions, some points to be noted. There are 4 points, important points. I'll tell you which all are important. So it says provisions of chapter 10 shall not apply. This chapter, if number 1, 2 situation. Number 1, income from such transaction is not taxable in India. Obviously, if income is not taxable in India, then who are we to charge tax? Who are we to make additions? Who are we to make adjustments? We cannot. Second is very interesting. Please focus, understand. X Limited in India, Y Limited foreign company in Dubai, both are associated enterprise. X Limited sold product to Y Limited for 10 rupee per unit. And the ALP is 110. At 10 rupee, 1 crore units are sold. 1 crore units. Accordingly, it works out to be, sales works out to be 10 crore rupees. Cost is 9 crore rupees and accordingly profit is 1 crore rupee. This is what IT return is filed by X Limited, selling it at 10 rupee per unit, but the ALP is 100 rupee, 110. So what AO will do? We know pretty well. AO will reject this sales, AO will reject this price and substitute it by arm's length price. AO will make it 110. Accordingly, new sales figure will be 110 crore instead of 10 crore. But the cost remains same, 9 crore. So new profit will be 101 crore. How much addition AO is making? AO is making addition of 100 crore applying this chapter. So we can say addition of 100 crore or we can say income is enhanced. Total income is enhanced. This is in technical language. Enhanced by 100 crore. Okay. This is fine. Here chapter will apply. What are we discussing? When is the chapter not applicable? 2 situation, income is not taxable in India, and second thing you need to understand, if I sold my product to associated enterprise at 10 rupee and the ALP is 110, that means I sold it at less than ALP, then chapter will apply. Addition of 100 crore will be made. What if I sold ALP is 110 and I did not sell at 10 rupee per unit, I sold it at 210, more than ALP. ALP is 110 but I sold it at 210 and I showed income of 201 crore. If AO rejects this price as per this chapter, AO substitutes it by ALP and makes it 110 crore, then my 9 crore cost and my profit will drop down to 101 crore. Then this chapter will not apply. Chapter will apply only if there is an increase in the total income, total taxable income, and not when there is a reduction in the total income. Reduction of 100 crore, chapter will not apply. Effect of applying provisions of this chapter is reduction of taxable income in India. Okay. Now the question is, in order to determine ALP for financial year 24-25. 24-25 supposing it is already completed, assessment year 25-26 is going on. I need to file IT return by 30th November 2026. 30th November 25. This is the due date. So when I am filing IT return, I am computing income for 12 months period, 1st April 24 to 31st March 25. At that time, I need to compute ALP, and for computing ALP, I need to look here there and find out some comparable transaction. I need to find out how much is the gross profit margin of competitors or other people. I need to find out the gross profit margin prevailing in my industry in which I am functioning. I need industry profit margin, competitors profit margin. I should know at what price I have sold to outsiders, unrelated party. I need various data. Question is, how many years data do I need? I need data for sure, and data document information to be required to be maintained as per 92D subsection 1 clause 1, data document information as per rule 10D. I know to be maintained for 8 years from the end of assessment year, 9 years from the end of previous year, plus to be furnished within 10 days whenever called upon by AO or CIT appeal, can be extended by 10 more days. I know that. I am maintaining data document information. But how many years data can I use? That is the question. So answer is I can make use of, technically I should make use of data of current year only. Current year is financial year 24-25. Let's call this as current year. Current year means that year for which you are calculating ALP, CY I will call it. So earlier as per rule 10b sub rule 4, AO could make use of data of total 3 years. AO could make use of data of AO will make use of data of financial year 24-25 current year plus 2 more years preceding the current year, financial year 23-24 and financial year 22-23. AO could consider data of 3 years. However, Modi government came, CBDT was instructed to change the rule. Now rule 10b sub rule 5 saying that sub rule 4 will apply only for transactions, international transaction up to 31st March 24. If the international transaction has taken place on or after 1st April 24, then sub rule 5 will apply, which says data of current year only. Data of current year only. No going backwards, only current year. Good enough. But those who have a practical experience of this chapter, they would be knowing that arranging for a comparative or comparable transaction is very difficult. Tested party and other circumstances, many factors are there. Arranging for a tested party, there are softwares available, you can search online, but it's a difficult task. So in such situation, if data of the current year not available at the time of filing IT return, then rule 10b sub rule 5 says that you can use data of immediately preceding previous year, data of last year. Last year or years? No, only 1 year, last 1 year, financial year 23-24. If data of 24-25 not available at the time of filing IT return. However, this rule is applicable only if transaction takes place on or after 1st April 2024 and the method followed for computing ALP, method of ALP computation is not CUPM. CUPM should not be there. It should be either resale price method, cost plus method or transactional net margin method. PSM also not allowed. If it is PSM or CUPM, then rule 10b 5 will not apply. One will have to continue with rule 10b sub rule 4. There is a further clarification that current year data not available, then you go backwards, take last year's data. But this is the story at the time of filing IT return. Later on, while doing assessment, if AO arranges for the data of current year, then the data of last year will have to be ignored and one will have to pick up the data of current year and suitable corresponding changes may have to be made. So data as per 10b4, data of 2 more years relevant previous year plus 2 more years maximum preceding the current year, provided international transaction or specified domestic transaction is undertaken up to 31st March 2014. Sorry, I wrote 24, right? 14, 10 years back. Arun Jaitley ji already made amendment when he entered. Okay, however, if transaction is on or after 1st April 14, then 10b5 will apply, but 10b5 is only for 3 methods, not applicable if CUPM or PSM is followed. If the method is CUPM PSM, then this rule 10b5 will not apply, rule 10b4 will continue to be applicable. If rule 10b5 applies, then data of current year data not available, then preceding previous year's data at the time of filing IT return. However, current year data is subsequently available at the time of assessment, then ignore last year's data, pick up current year data. Then 92C, 92CD is over. 92C is secondary adjustment, an important point, in fact very important, so please understand, focus upon. Pause. So what is this? 92C is secondary adjustment, but this is only for international transaction, not applicable for specified domestic transaction. Two concepts: primary adjustment, secondary adjustment. Whatever additions that we make under this chapter as per ALP, that is called primary adjustment. In our example, assessee had been showing 1 crore rupees of income, 1 crore, and we made addition of 100 crore. We increase the income to 101 crore. So this addition made is called primary adjustment, and now under this chapter some secondary adjustment is to be made. What is secondary adjustment? We will understand. First you understand what is primary adjustment. Addition of 100 crore is called primary adjustment. Same example I am taking here, what we had been discussing again and again. Now on this primary adjustment, tax will be charged plus interest will be charged, surcharge, health and education says, that is okay. But now government says some international concept, that government says where is this money lying right now? As per assessee in India, as per P&L account, the profit was 1 crore which we increased to 100, increased by 100 crore, we made it 101 crore. But cash bank balance is still 1 crore only. Cash bank balance is 1 crore. So difference of 100 crore. This also needs to be adjusted. So government says where is this money lying right now? So answer, this money is lying in the custody of associated enterprise outside India, non-resident associated enterprise Y Limited. Government says we need this money back to India. Bring it back to India, repatriate it back to India within some time limit. Time limit is given in Rule 10 CB, which is 90 days. But 90 days from where, that we have to discuss. In 5 situation, 90 days will start from different time limit, different dates in 5 different situations. But primarily bring it back within, normally bring it back within 90 days from the due date of filing IT return. If not brought back to India within 90 days, then this 100 crore or whatever amount is not repatriated back will be deemed to be advance made by X Limited to Y Limited, loan given by X Limited to Y Limited. So answer, then notional interest on that 100 crore will have to be computed applying particular rate of interest given in Rule 10 CB. Calculate notional interest. For example, notional interest rate is 8% hypothetically. Then 100 crore into 8%, 8 crore rupees, that notional interest on 100 crore will be deemed to be the income of X Limited next year onwards after 90 days are over. 8 crore will be added to the income of X Limited, not only next year, every year till the time it is repatriated back to India, if not repatriated back within 90 days. Lot many things to be discussed. First of all, understand what is primary adjustment, what is secondary adjustment. So primary adjustment is nothing but increase in the total income or reduction in the total loss in accordance with arm's length principle. No need to study this. Once you have understood what is it, simply it is adjustment. Primary adjustment means addition made by AO or additions made in the total income in compliance with arm's length principle. This will be also called as excess money. Excess money is lying with associated enterprise. Associate needs to bring it back, repatriate it back within 90 days. Otherwise, notional interest on the same will be calculated and will be taxed in the hands of X Limited. Provided the secondary adjustment, this repatriating it back to India, or if not repatriated back, then calculating notional interest, that is called secondary adjustment. Nomenclature used here is very stupid, but ignore it, simply understand the concept. So primary adjustments are made. Now who has to make secondary adjustment? So it says secondary adjustment to be made by assessee, which is actually wrong thing. AO will make it, but it says primarily assessee will have to make it. Assessee does not make secondary adjustment, does not add notional interest in the next year's income. Then AO will do it, but primarily assessee will have to do it. Secondary adjustment is required to be made only if primary adjustments were made in any of these 5 situations. Primary adjustment to the transfer price is made by assessee himself, suo motu, in the IT return, or primary adjustments are made by AO, which is accepted by assessee. Accepted by assessee means assessee does not dispute it, assessee does not file appeal against it. Primary adjustments are made by assessee himself. Second, primary adjustments are made by department and assessee accepts it. And here it says only AO, but later on when we come to Rule 10 CB, there it says either made by AO or made by appellate authority, and assessee accepted it. Or third, fourth and fifth point. Third point, in case if the primary adjustments are made as per advance pricing agreement, or primary adjustments are made as per safe harbor rule, SHR, under section 92 CB, or the last point, primary adjustments are made as per resolution of assessment as per mutual agreement procedure, MAP. What is mutual agreement procedure? Mutual agreement procedure means in case if assessee is resident of one country, let's say India, Mr. X, and he earns income from UK, and there is a DTAA between India and UK under section 1990A. As per agreement, UK government, he is a resident of India, earns income from UK. UK government is supposed to charge him tax as per agreement between India and UK. But in case of UK government does not charge him tax as per agreement, charges him some higher tax, then that person can have a complaint. He can have a grievance. Where to raise the complaint? He can raise complaint either with the tax authority of UK or tax authority of India, or both. If he raises complaint to tax authority of UK or the tax representative finance ministry of UK, finance ministry of UK will try to resolve the issue on its own. If unable to resolve, then they will contact Indian government, and both the governments, tax representatives of both the governments will mutually agree to some conclusion, mutually find a resolution. That resolution is called as mutual agreement procedure. As per that mutual agreement procedure, if any additions are made in the income of Mr. X in India, that is called primary adjustment. So if primary adjustments are made by assessee, suo motu, by AO or appellate authority, as per APA, as per MAP, as per SHR. However, out of these 5, what comes in exam is only the first 2 situation, and more likely second situation, primary adjustments or additions are made by AO. Then what to do? 92 CE. Now what is secondary adjustment? Secondary adjustments are given 2 meanings. One, first meaning is unimportant, this I have not covered in your notes. Second meaning is, secondary adjustment means excess money or a part thereof which is available with associated enterprise shall be repatriated back to India within time limit given in Rule 10 CB, which is 90 days, from where I will tell you, failing which, if it is not repatriated back to India within 90 days, excess money will be deemed to be advance made by assessee to such AO, such associated enterprise, and notional interest on the same will have to be computed as per Rule 10 CB. Now, whether to bring this back from same associated enterprise, X Limited will have to bring it back from Y Limited only, or can bring it back from some other associated enterprise also. Many people complain, government agreed. Finance Act 2019, Nirmala Sitharamanji clarified it that now this money can be repatriated back to India from any of the non-resident associated enterprises, and not necessarily from the same non-resident assessee, same non-resident associated enterprise with whom transaction was undertaken. What is excess money? That we already understood. Additions made by AO as per this chapter is excess money. Excess money means the difference between the ALP as per primary adjustment and price at which international transaction is actually undertaken by assessee. Proviso to section 92C, this is very important. There are 2 exceptions. This concept will not apply in 2 situations. Number 1, in case where the amount of primary adjustment does not exceed rupees 1 crore. Not the value of international transaction. If the primary adjustment, that is additions made by AO, does not exceed 1 crore, then this concept will not apply. No need to repatriate it back, no need to compute notional interest. And secondly, if the primary adjustments were made, or for any assessment year made prior to introduction of this 92 CE, that means primary adjustments were made for any assessment year prior to AY 17-18. Prior to AY 17-18 means up to AY 16-17. Then this concept will not apply. Okay, if you recollect, I told you in the previous part 1 of this chapter that in this chapter there are 4 types of, or 4 threshold limits are given, or threshold limits are given at 4 places. Number 1, 92BA, specified domestic transaction, where the aggregate of all the transactions given there exceeds 20 crore, then only specified domestic transaction will be subjected to this chapter. Secondly, this section 92 CE, where the primary adjustment amount should exceed 1 crore rupees. Then we had Rule 10D sub Rule 2, rule number, where data document information will be required to be maintained for a period of 8 years only if the value of international transaction as recorded by assessee in his books of account exceeds 1 crore rupees. One more limit will come in the upcoming section 94B, there also it is 1 crore. So 1 crore, 1 crore, 1 crore, only at one place it is 20 crore. 4 types of threshold limits in this chapter, easy to remember, keep them in your mind. Our institute asks questions based on this. Everywhere it is greater than, so no issues. Now rule 10CB, most important part, how to compute interest, that is notional interest. Before that, to avoid interest, you need to repatriate it back within 90 days. This section talks about two things. What is the time limit to repatriate back? Answer 90 days, but 90 days from where? So it talks about in 5 different situations, 90 days from where or from which date. And secondly, in case if not repatriated back, then interest will be from which date? Interest from which date? Meaning thereby, you know, just like TDS, TCS chapter, TDS chapter, tax is deductible at the time of payment or credit, whichever is earlier. But what date the TDS is to be deposited? To be deposited by 7th of the next month. Failing which, interest will not start from 8th of the next month. Interest will start from the date on which tax was deductible. Same concept here. Time limit 90 days is like a grace period given by government. You bring it back within 90 days from particular date. If not repatriated back in 90 days, interest will not start from 91st day. Interest will start from the same day from which you started calculating 90-day time period. Interest will start from first day, not from 91st day. That is one thing. And secondly, it talks about rate of interest. In case if not repatriated back in 90 days, then rate of interest will be how much? Rate of interest will depend upon two factors. Rate of interest will depend upon in which currency is the transaction undertaken, which currency transaction is denominated, which currency transaction is expressed. If it is in foreign currency, then rate of interest will be LIBOR rate of interest, London Interbank rate of interest, London Interbank offer rate plus 3%. And in case if the transaction is denominated in Indian rupees, INR, then the rate of interest will be of State Bank of India, marginal cost of fund lending rate, MCFLR of State Bank of India plus 3.25%. Well, since international language is used here, instead of 3%, they call it as 300 basis points, and 3.25% they call it as 325 basis points. We will discuss. So starting with this part, 90 days from what date? So in 5 situations, primary adjustments are made, and in those 5 situations, secondary adjustments are required. Same 5 situations are reproduced here. Time limit for repatriation, second thing, date from which interest is chargeable. CBDT 30th September 2019 notification. No need to remember the date. First situation where primary adjustments are made by assessee himself, suo motu by assessee in his IT return. Then very simple, 90 days to be calculated. Time limit to repatriate it back will be 90 days from the due date of filing IT return. Due date is 30th November of the relevant assessment year. 30th November of the relevant assessment year. So bring it back within 90 days from 30th November 2025 for your attempt. In case it is not repatriated back, then interest will not start from 91st day. Interest will be again starting from the same date, the due date of filing IT return. Understand very clearly. So what will happen is, your financial year applicable to you is 1st April 2024 till 31st March 2025. You really need to understand this. Then 1st April 2025 is the beginning of assessment year. Due date to file IT return is 30th November 25. You need to bring it back from starting from 30th November 25, 90 days. 90 days can be understood as 3 months. So 31 days of December, 31 days of January, and then 28 days of February. So time limit will end on 28th February 2026 ideally. Bring it back by within this period, 90 days. Else interest will start not from 1st March, interest will start from 30th November 25 itself. So current year additions are made by AO. You disclose income of 1 crore rupees, AO made addition of 100 crore. Now if you don't repatriate it back, then interest on this 100 crore will not be added to the income of 24-25 financial year. No, in 24-25 financial year, no effect. Suppose any rate of interest is 8%, then notional interest will work out to be 8 crore. 8 crore will have to be added in the next year. Next year's income, add 8 crore. And now here you won't add full 8 crore because 8 crore is for the whole year. Here interest is going to start from 1st December or 30th November. So interest will be for November, December, January, February, March, 5 months. So 8 crore is for 12 months. How much for 5 months? That we'll have to calculate. And in case it is not repatriated back, not repatriated back in this year as well as next year also, financial year 26-27, then financial year 26-27 will be for whole 12 months if not repatriated back in financial year 26-27 also. Okay, now this will be taxed as per normal rate. However, understand very carefully, this is the first situation if primary adjustments are made by assessee. Only first two situations are relevant, so please make sure you understand first two situations thoroughly. Due date of filing IT return. But if adjustments are made by AO or primary adjustments are made as per order of appellate authority, order of AO or order of appellate authority, and is accepted by assessee. Accepted by assessee means assessee does not dispute further, does not file further appeal, or he files but he loses and thereafter does not file further appeal to higher authority. Then the tick time limit of 90 days will start from the date of order of AO or appellate authority, and interest will also start from the same date of order of AO or date of order of appellate authority as the case may be. Now date of order means what? Date of passing the order or date of assessee receiving the copy of that order. Nothing is clarified, but there are multiple case laws available on this. Everywhere clarified that how assessee will come to know when is the order passed and what are the contents of the order. Assessee will come to know the contents of the order and the date of passing order only when assessee receives the copy. Therefore, all tick should start, time limit should start from the date on which assessee receives the copy of order. So when we say the order of AO or order of appellate authority, we don't mean to say date of issuing the order or date of passing the order. We mean to say date of assessee receiving the copy of order. Remaining situations are all unimportant, except of this APA related thing where the due dates are divided into 90 days time limit is divided into two part 1, part 2, part I would say A and B. Okay, where the different time limits are there, because this is unimportant, so I am ignoring it. SHR and last is MAP, both the places due date of filing IT return, due date of filing IT return. Only in the last situation where the resolution is as per MAP. The institute is not going to ask you questions on this, so don't worry, I can guarantee you for this, because this never happens in real life. Okay, then as per MAP, whenever there is a resolution of assessment, the matter will come back to AO. AO will have to give effect to that MAP resolution. Whatever is determined as per MAP, AO will have to give effect. Whenever AO gives effect, as per rule 44H, the date of giving effect by AO, same time limit for calculation of interest. This is not going to come. Mainly you remember first two situation. I hope you are very clear about first two situation. Due date of filing IT return, due date of filing IT return, as may be extended by CBRT. If extended, then take the extended date. Okay, and in case where order is passed by AO or appellate authority, then 90 days time limit will start from the date of order of AO. Okay, now what will be the rate of interest? Rate of interest will depend upon which currency is the transaction. If the international transaction is denominated in Indian currency, then take 1 year marginal cost of fund lending rate MCFLR of State Bank of India plus 3.25%, that is 325 basis point as on 1st April of the relevant previous year. And in case transaction is in foreign currency, take LIBOR, 6 months LIBOR plus London interbank offer rate plus 3%. That is 300 basis point as on 30th September of the relevant previous year. What do you mean by relevant previous year? Relevant previous year means the year for which you are calculating interest. Year for which you are calculating interest. As I explained you, if additions are made in financial year 24-25, then notional interest will not be added in financial year 24-25. The year in which primary adjustments are made, in that year notional interest will never come. Notional interest at the max will come from the next year. And next year also it will not be for whole year, it will be for 5 months, etc. Now notional interest starts from the next year. Notional interest will be for financial year 25-26. Then relevant assessment year, we have to take rate of interest as on 1st April of the relevant assessment year or 30th September LIBOR, 30th September of the relevant previous year. Relevant previous year here would be that year for which you are calculating interest. So for this year you will have to calculate, you will have to find out rate of interest as on State Bank of India as on 1st April 25, or if it is LIBOR, then it will be as on 30th September 25. But not repatriated back in the next year also. So next year is financial year 26-27. Again you are going to calculate interest for 26-27. Then 26-27 becomes the relevant previous year. Then again you change the rate of interest. Rate of interest will be as on 1st April 2026 or 30th September 2026 for LIBOR. Relevant previous year means that year for which you are calculating interest. If the interest does not stop, you have not repatriated back, interest will be charged for next year also. Not charged, interest will have to be calculated and added to the income of the next year also. Next year becomes financial year 27-28. Then this is the relevant year. Then interest rate should be as on, for State Bank of India it should be as on 1st April 2027, and for LIBOR it should be as on 30th September 2027. As the case may be, right? Okay. Now LIBOR or State Bank of India rate will be given to you. Okay. Now, however, the transaction is in international currency. That means if international transaction is in foreign currency, then first of all you will have to not only apply LIBOR, that is okay, you apply LIBOR, but on what amount? So answer on the amount of primary adjustment. But a primary adjustment is in foreign currency, that's why we are applying LIBOR. Primary adjustment is in foreign currency, you will have to first of all convert it into Indian currency. And to convert it into Indian currency, in case if international transaction is denominated in foreign currency, then only you will have to convert it into Indian currency. Applying which rate? So answer telegraphic transfer buying rate TTBR of State Bank of India. Remember in capital gain chapter and in special rates of tax chapter also, and in DTAA chapter also, we had briefly discussed that there are three rates: buying rate, selling rate, average rate. Here we have to take buying rate. What is buying, what is selling rate, what is average rate, you know pretty well. TTBR, telegraphic transfer rate, is nothing but exchange rate. But we don't have to take RBI's exchange rate, we have to compulsorily take State Bank of India's exchange rate. That transaction in foreign currency, that you convert it into Indian currency, applying the TTBR rate as on which date? As on last day of the previous year, as on the last day of the previous year. This you'll have to remember, many people are not aware of this. TTBR of State Bank of India as on the last day of previous year. This is clarified by CBDT in a same circular, same notification where Rule 10 CB was prescribed. Then later on, Nirmala Sitharamanji introduced 4 more sections from 1st September 19. Many people complain that, sir, we are X Limited, Dubai based company Y Limited. Nirmala Sitharamanji said either you bring it back from Y Limited or you bring it back from any non-resident associated enterprise, any. That we checked out. Now she said, okay, many people complain, sir, ma'am, we cannot bring it back at all. We cannot bring it back. You make addition to our income, you charge tax, that's okay. Our foreign company head office has no issue with that, but they are not going to send money back to India. Money will not be sent. They have already invested, they have already spent. It is already over. There is no possibility of sending back to India. So Nirmala Sitharamanji gave an alternate remedy, which is again important from exam point of view, that okay, don't repatriate it back, don't calculate notional interest, pay extra tax called as additional tax. Additional tax. On 100 crore of addition, assessee must have already paid normal tax 30%, 25% or 22% plus surcharge plus health and education cess. Normal tax must have already been paid. In addition to that, pay additional tax. Additional tax will be at the rate of 18%. 18% plus compulsory surcharge at the rate of 12%. How is surcharge 12% compulsorily irrespective of the amount involved? This is coming from Finance Act. Every Finance Act, Section 2, Subsection 4 of Finance Act talks about surcharge rate. There, for 3 places, surcharge rate will be 12%. One is this 92 CE subsection 2A, one is buyback tax, which is deleted, tax on buyback, 115 QA, QB, QC, and one was charitable trust chapter exit tax or tax on accreted income. 3 places surcharge to be taken at 12% and not normal surcharge rate. This is given in Finance Act, any Finance Act you pick up, 23, 24, 22, every year same thing is reproduced. Plus health and education says effective rate will be 20.9664, which is approximately 21%. This is really killing that on 100 crore you already paid 31%, 31.2%, 35%, let's say 35% tax is already paid approximately. Plus you pay this 21%. eventually 56% government will take away plus interest. However, once this is done, has not been repatriated, assessee may at his own option. This concept is optional. Don't pay additional tax, bring back that 100 crore. Additional income tax at 18% plus so and so. However, once this tax is paid, the moment it is paid, secondary adjustments will not be required. No need to repatriate it back to India and no need to calculate notional interest. But no need to calculate additional interest, no need to calculate this notional interest from the date of payment of this tax. Till that time, notional interest will have to be computed. Once a question came, not in our CA final paper 4, question came in paper of international taxation, elective paper under old system, where institute drafted a very classic question where interest was to start, notional interest calculation was to start from 30th November 2025, and in between assessee paid additional tax was paid on 18 July 2026. Then in that case, from this date to this date, interest had to be calculated. If it is 31st July, say 31st July additional tax is paid, 31st July. Now what happens is most people end up calculating interest on a monthly basis. 30th November 25 till 31st July 2026, that is whole December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 8 months. If you calculate interest for 8 months in this example, from the due date of filing IT return till the date of payment of additional tax, if you calculate it for 8 months, then your answer will go wrong. Why it will go wrong? Because understand, interest to be calculated on a daily basis. Always remember, this is what institute does. I mentioned a note also, interest to be calculated on a daily basis. And this is an important note in your notes. Okay. Then 92C is subsection 2B. Once it is paid, excess, all these things not to be done, we already discussed. Then no need to calculate additional interest or additional taxes paid, then secondary adjustment not required to compute interest also from the date of payment of additional tax. Till then interest will have to be computed. Okay. With that 92CE comes to an end. Very important from exam perspective, keep it in your mind. In your notes I have covered it this way. Last 4 subsections we discussed right now. Questions do come on this additional tax also. So don't ignore this concept of additional tax and the rate of additional tax. And don't forget State Bank of India rate plus 3.25%, LIBOR plus 3%, interest to compute, interest to start from the date which is due date of filing IT return or date of AO's order or appellate authority's order. Interest 90 days will also start from the same day. In interest calculation will also start from the same day. Now only thing left out is 94B. 94B is restriction on payment of interest. So this 94B is titled as restriction on the claiming of interest, deduction on account of claiming interest while paying interest to non-resident associated enterprise, subject to various exception and subject to 1 crore rupees of threshold limit as we discussed earlier. Okay, very important section from exam perspective. Practical questions are asked based on this. So we have practical questions on computing ALP under 6 methods. We'll have questions on 92CE and we'll have practical question on 94B. 3 types of things which can attract or on which institute can draft practical question. What is it? This is based on recommendations of OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. OECD had come out with this project called BEPS project, Base Erosion and Profit Shifting Project, 2015. In that BEPS project, there were 15 action plans. Action plan number 4, where OECD recommended introduction of this is called thin capitalization. Thin capitalization. Now our institute has a very bad habit of asking theory question also. So institute asks MCQ, and in MCQ they will give you match the column. In match the column, on the left hand side column they will give you action plan numbers, and on the right hand side they will give you description of the title for that action plan. Like action plan 1 is for digital economy, equalization levy was introduced under action plan 1, and this thin capitalization is also one of the action plans, action plan number 4. What is it? I will tell you briefly. So quickly I'll explain to you. Say Indian company is a payer or the borrower. Indian company has borrowed funds. Borrower is Indian company and there is lender. Lender is non-resident associated enterprise. Who should be the borrower? Borrower should be either Indian company or permanent establishment in India, PE in India, of a foreign company. And the lender should be non-resident plus associated enterprise of the borrower. And lender gives loan. We don't say loan because government has tried covering other types of transaction also. So we say lender has incurred a debt. Incurred, a borrower has incurred a debt. Concept does not apply to anybody other than company. In the sense, it applies to foreign company's branch in India or applies to Indian company. Does not apply to borrower being Indian, borrower being individual, HUF, AOP, BOI, partnership firm, LLP. Cooperative society, AOP, BOI applies only to company. These two conditions are primarily satisfied and this should be the structuring of the lender. And borrower pays interest or any other finance charges. This concept is applicable not only when the funds are borrowed, debt is incurred in terms of money, not necessarily money, even if the debt is incurred in terms of taking an asset on lease, and instead of paying interest, the Indian counterpart is paying lease rental, and that interest or the lease rental or the finance charge exceed rupees 1 crore. Interest amount exceeds 1 crore rupees in the whole year, then this concept is applicable. Then out of this total interest, find out how much is the excess interest. Excess interest to be found out or calculated as per some formula. Excess interest will be disallowed totally. Will be disallowed. However, it's a temporary disallowance. Right now disallowed. It can be carried forward for the next 8 years and it will be allowed in the next 8 years anytime within the next 8 years, subject to same condition applicable as is applicable for the current year for calculating excess interest. Borrower should not be engaged in banking business, should not be engaged in insurance business, should not be notified NBFC, non-banking finance company, specified NBFC, and should not be finance company located in NBFC, finance company located in International Financial Service Center. This fourth restriction newly introduced from AY 25-26, 1st October, this one was introduced from 1st October 2024 by way of budget dated 23rd July 2024. The borrower should be fulfilling this condition, should not be engaged in, this is the negative list, this is the positive list. Borrower should be so and so, borrower should not be so and so. Lender should be so and so. There is one exception, lender should also not be in the banking business, should not be a PE in India, of a banking business. Okay, if these conditions are satisfied, the banking business is a common exception for both the places. You need to remember this 1 crore rupees amount. If all conditions are satisfied, excess interest will be disallowed. How to compute excess interest? Excess interest means interest paid payable to non-residents, total interest paid or payable in excess of total interest paid payable minus 30% of EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization, EBITDA, or interest paid payable to non-resident, interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise. Whichever is lower, that will be excess interest. Now here there is some dispute or debatable issue with regards to government's interpretation as per what is given in the Act and our beloved institute's interpretation as what institute has understood. So let's try to understand. So I would do it this way. Restriction on the amount of interest paid payable to associated enterprise called thin capitalization only for international transaction as per BEPS Action Plan 4. Borrower has incurred debt. Borrower is paying interest to lender. Borrower should be so and so. Interest should be exceeding 1 crore. Borrower should be Indian company or PE of foreign company. Lender should be non-resident plus associated enterprise of borrower. Condition 1, condition 2, condition 3, condition 4, interest exceeding 1 crore. And 2 more conditions about exceptions. Indian company should not be engaged in the banking business, insurance business, should not be notified class of NBFC, should not be finance company located in IFSC. Lender should be other than PE in India of a non-resident engaged in banking business. Excess interest will be disallowed. Excess interest will be computed in the following manner as per formula. Excess interest means lower of following two, either total interest paid payable to everyone minus total interest paid payable to everyone. Paid payable to non-residents, residents, associated enterprise, non-resident, non-associated enterprise, payable to everyone minus 30% of EBITDA, EBITDA of the borrower, of course, earning before interest, depreciation, tax and amortization, versus interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise. Whichever is lower will be disallowed. Whichever is lower will be disallowed. Balance will be allowed as a deduction in the current year. And what will happen to it? So carry it forward to the next year. Carry forward for 8 years maximum. Max 8 years. If could not be set off in the next 8 years, then it will lapse. It's a temporary disallowance but subject to this condition, similar to carry forward of losses. Maximum 8 years. And there is a clarification, debt includes not only loan, debt includes financial instrument like debentures, bonds, securities, financial lease, financial derivative, any arrangement that gives rise to interest, discount or other finance charges. Okay. Now how much should be disallowed? According to plain reading of the Act, data required to understand is interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise plus interest paid payable to others. 150 lakh and 80 lakh. Total interest is 230 lakh, that is total of these two. Interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise is 150, others it is 30, total 230. EBITDA of the borrower is 400 lakh. These figures have to be given by institute readily, otherwise we cannot solve the question. So nowadays institute has started asking MCQs based on this. It says lower of the following two will be disallowed. Lower of which two? Either total interest minus 30% of EBITDA. Total interest is 230 lakh minus 30% of EBITDA. EBITDA is 400 lakh. So 230 lakhs minus 120 lakh, that is 30% of 400 lakh. How much will the answer be? 230 minus 120 is equal to 110 lakhs. Or interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise. Interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise is readily given to us, 150 lakh. Whichever is lower. Which one is lower? Lower of the two is 110. 110 disallowed. How much will be allowed then? How much will be allowed? So answer, total 230 is paid. Total 230 minus disallowed is 110. Balance 120 will be allowed. Every time whenever institute would ask a question, always see what exactly is asked to you, especially for MCQ. Small reading mistake, small mistake in understanding, your answer will go wrong. If institute says how much will be disallowed, then your answer should be 110. If institute says how much will be allowed, then answer should be 120. If you don't read properly and jump to conclusion 110 disallowed, institute has asked you about this and you end up answering this in MCQ, then you're gone, your answer will be wrong. Because MCQ papers are corrected by computer system based on what you have tick mark. There it will not use its brain. Okay, so simply answer whatever is asked to you, read properly. Okay, so what is institute's interpretation? Institute says that government has blundered in understanding BEPS Action Plan 4 and government has kept it this way. I agree with institute somewhat. Institute says that In the first point, out of lower of the two, first point, second point is okay, interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise. This is fine. This first point, total interest minus EBITDA, total interest should be understood. Our institute says that if we consider total interest 230 lakh, then we accidentally will end up applying this concept. We will end up applying this concept on interest paid payable to other people also. This concept, as per action plan 4, as per OECD's understanding, concept is applicable strictly and only to interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise. If you take total interest, you are applying this concept on not only 150, you are applying on 80 lakh also. 80 lakh also will be subjected to this unnecessarily. That should not happen. So institute says that total interest in point number A should be understood as interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise. So institute says 150 lakh is interest to non-resident associated enterprise, 80 lakh is to outsiders, total is 230 lakh and EBITDA is 400 lakh. So what it says, second point will remain same, that is interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise 150 lakh. But first point, total interest to non-resident associated enterprise minus 30% of EBITDA, this will be 150 lakh minus for 30% of 400 lakh, 150 lakh minus 120 lakh is equal to 30 lakh. 30 lakh versus 150, whichever is lower, only 30 lakh will be disallowed. According to institute, 30 lakh will be disallowed. As per plain reading of the act, 110 will be disallowed. So institute's interpretation is beneficial for us, but institute has come to a conclusion based on its understanding of BEPS action plan. In that case, we will have to ignore what is given in the act. Institute says Arun Jaitley ji has blundered and now Arun Jaitley ji is no more there. Whom to blame and whom to ask? So no clarification. Institute nowadays what it does, institute while solving question, they will first solve this way, in the way they have given, disallowing 30 lakh. So out of 230 lakh total interest, 30 lakh disallowed and 200 lakhs will be allowed. First you solve this way, then you write a note, alternatively this interpretation is also correct, accordingly amount disallowable should be 110 as we calculate. Okay, concept applies only if the borrower is Indian company or PE of foreign company, incurs expenditure by way of interest. We are done with. Remember this 1 crore, interest amount should exceed 1 crore. In a previous section 92 CE, primary adjustment had to exceed 1 crore. Here interest amount should exceed 1 crore and not excess interest. Excess interest will be lower of following to total amount of interest paid payable, total interest paid payable to anybody in excess of 30% of EBITDA or interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise. If institute's interpretation is followed, no, then whatever is given in point number A will become redundant. Why? According to institute, it is 150 lakh minus 30% of EBITDA versus 150 lakh. So naturally 150 minus something will be lower only, no, as compared to 150 itself. 150 minus 30% of EBITDA, 150 minus something will be lower always as compared to 150 itself. So according to institute says total interest paid payable should be understood as total interest paid payable to non-resident associated enterprise in point number A. In exam, follow institute's interpretation, write as per the act, you write in the bracket or as the alternate answer. Okay. Does not apply if engaged in PE of foreign company or Indian company, the borrower is engaged in banking business or insurance business or is notified NBFC or is finance company located in IFSC. This was introduced by Nirmala Sitharamanji with effect from EY 25-26. And lender should be PE in India of non-resident who is engaged in banking business engaged, then concept will not apply. Debt will include so and so, we are done with. Okay. Very important point, proviso. In 92 CE also proviso was important. There were exceptions. Here also proviso important. Whenever a question asked in the exam by institute, there will be a point relating to proviso. Proviso says if borrower has lent money, borrower is X Limited and associated enterprises Y Limited, and they know that they are associated of each other, they directly give loan or incur a debt directly, then they will be caught. This concept will be applied. this concept will automatically become applicable. So what they do is that purposely they don't give loan to each other. Purposely Y Limited does not give loan to X Limited. What they do is that Y Limited will approach Citibank. Y Limited approaches Citibank and Y Limited deposits 100 crore FD, fixed deposit, and tells Citibank that based on our 100 crore FD, or let's say more than 100 crore, it says based on our 120 crore FD, you in terms of Indian rupees, give loan to our enterprise, our associated enterprise X Limited, you give loan of 100 crore. So that X Limited will now pay interest to Citibank, and this interest should not be subjected to thin capitalization, because interest is not paid to associated enterprise, interest is paid to Citibank, third party. So proviso says don't do all this trick, don't play dirty tricks. We understand, we are government, we are one step ahead of you. So government says whether directly given or given through another person, whereby associated enterprise is putting money, depositing. Either associated enterprise is depositing money with that third party or has given guarantee for this transaction, directly, indirectly, then also concept will be applicable. Provisions are applicable only if lender is non-resident as well as associated enterprise of borrower. Debt is not issued by associated enterprise, but associated enterprise either gives guarantee, implicit or explicit, directly or indirectly, or to the lender, or deposit corresponding and matching amount with the lender, then this concept will still be applicable. Disallowance will be applicable. It will be deemed to have been issued, debt will be deemed to have been issued by associated enterprise, even though not actually issued by associated enterprise. That's it. I hope you have understood. With that, the revision of this chapter comes to an end. Thank you very much. Wish you a very good luck and see you in the next video with some other chapter.